Quinnipiac University releases a poll about the state of congressional midterm elections. It has good news for Democrats. In House races nationwide, voters back a generic Democrat over a generic Republican, 52% to 38%. It also finds voters do not want Congress to begin impeachment proceedings on President Trump by a 20-point margin. Joining me now by Skype from Los Angeles is Michael Knowles of the Daily Wire and host of The Michael Knowles Show. Michael, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
Democrats need a net gain of 23 seats to take control of the House. Turnout for Democrats was high in the special elections. How tough of a fight will it be for House Republicans this November?
Well, historical trends are certainly against the Republicans. When one party holds the White House, they're very likely to lose the House in the midterm elections. However, even looking at all of these bad numbers for Republicans, polls showing that the generic congressional candidate, the generic congressional Democrat is likely to win over the Republican, you have to remember that there are no generic candidates. There are no generic House districts. This will be fought district by district, and so the particulars might change. Another question would be the Senate. It seems much more likely that the Democrats would take the House than that they would take the Senate. But we have to ask ourselves, in so much as these races in 2018 will be referenda on President Trump, which votes has President Trump lost? When people voted for him in 2016, I think there were fairly low expectations of how he would perform. We weren't sure how the economy would do, how he would do on foreign affairs, how he would do on government regulation. And yet on each of those areas, President Trump has succeeded tremendously. We've seen tax cuts, historic tax reform. We've seen an economy booming, record high markets, record low unemployment. And even among core Democrat constituencies, in particular the black vote, which the Democrats have relied on for decades and decades, we're seeing the Republicans and President Trump in particular performing at historic highs. So when you get down into the particulars, it might not be as rosy in November for Democrats as they're banking on.
You referenced earlier the Senate. Yesterday, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell expressed his concern for the Senate, describing races in 9 states, including Tennessee and Indiana, as being dead even. Can Republicans hold on to their slim majority?
I'm even worried about the race in Texas. It's possible that Ted Cruz could lose to who otherwise would be a terrible candidate in O'Rourke. Anything could happen. Yogi Berra famously said that he doesn't make predictions, especially about the future. Republicans need to go into this election knowing that all of the trends are against them, and they need to turn out to vote.
Okay, so we'll be following that carefully. I want to shift gears to the fallout from the clergy sex abuse scandal and ask you about that, because as a Catholic, how do you think the media has been handling the coverage?
The media have shown their cards. So much of this awful scandal that is plaguing the church, the devil in the Vatican, as Father Gabriele Amorth said years ago, so much of this scandal has just shed light, and light is a wonderful disinfectant. We've seen this in the media coverage as well, because for years and years, the media pretended to have such care for the victims of sexual abuse over the decades. And now that they are viewing this as a political matter, as a political fight between Archbishop Vigano and the Holy Father, a political fight that they've largely invented and about which they know very little, they have taken the side of cover-ups and of ignoring the victims. They continue to post in the New York Times. They'll say conservatives pounce on the Vigano letter, when of course conservatives aren't pouncing on anything. The news story is that bishops and cardinals have covered up abuse, have been complicit in abuse. All people of goodwill should want that thoroughly investigated and should want the perpetrators held to the highest standards of justice. But the media have shown their cards. They say that they're not interested in justice. All they're interested in is petty politics.
Well, it's so interesting when you look at all of these headlines and actually bring to light what's actually going on. So we really appreciate your insight. Michael Knowles, host of the Michael Knowles Show. Thanks so much.
Thank you for having me.